Sooner or later, any cheater will be caught, because over time, each of them loses their vigilance, and I was lucky that my wife quickly lost her vigilance. Otherwise, she could have deceived me for decades. First-person account, Aaron Jacoby. My wife Megan and I have only been married for 3 years. I am 27 and she is 26. But lately, everything seems to have gone awry. Despite the fact that from the very day I met Megan, I was sure that Megan was the love of my life, everything suddenly changed. Megan seems to be in a bad mood most of the time, and she explains this by saying that I pay too much attention to other women, including our friends. Last night, the usual argument got even more heated than in the past, because I finally had enough. Damn it, Megan, despite the fact that I have never given you any reason to doubt my loyalty, you continue to treat me like a cheater or someone who will soon become one. What the hell is your problem? I trust you, despite your minor though much more significant than mine, flirtation, but if I even tell one of your friends that I like her dress, you will behave as if I have been having fun with her in bed for the last month. I screamed, unable to lower my voice so that the hairs on the back of my neck don't stand on end and my face doesn't turn red. We yelled at each other for the next 10 minutes before she stormed out of the living room of our rented house in tears. She locked the master bedroom door. When I was ready for bed, I told her to open it or I would break it down. She refused, either not believing I would or could, or simply not caring, I'm not sure which. A minute later, she headed to the second bedroom, passing by the damaged door lock. Despite the tension, I quickly fell asleep, only worried that since the bedroom door wasn't locked, she might harm me while I slept. The next morning, I prepared blueberry pancakes, sausage, and Paradise Roasters Kona K7 specialty coffee with a 95 rating, nearly the highest ever, her favorite breakfast, as a peace offering. She wasn't very talkative but enjoyed eating and drinking. Then I mentioned the basketball game she had bought tickets for that Saturday afternoon. She had played basketball in high school and Division III college and enjoys the sport. But given our argument the night before, I wasn't sure if she would attend with me. Even though she had purchased the tickets, I was holding them. I planned to go regardless. She acted as if she was doing me a favor by agreeing, but she did agree to go, and we even exchanged a few words that weren't hostile on our way there. When we arrived at the basketball arena, I was happy to discover that the tickets were just as she had described. Our seats were located in the lower level, roughly halfway between the eastern hoop and the half-court line. Megan prefers sitting on the aisle to stretch her long legs. She stands 6 feet 1 inch tall, or 185 centimeters for those using the metric system. Although I am 4 inches taller than she is, 10 centimeters, I let her choose her seat to keep her content. We watched the warm-ups in silence until Megan accused me of ogling one of the guards on the visiting team. I clarified that wasn't the case, mentioning that it was a women's game and asserting that I'm not gay. This led to some sarcastic remarks from her, which didn't stop even when a man and woman walked past us as we stood up. The woman sat in the seat next to me, while the man took the seat beside her, closer to half court. As they passed by, I didn't receive any significant looks, but the man seemed to be Megan's height and, unless I was mistaken, gave her a subtle smile. The woman was about 5 feet 7 inches tall, 170 centimeters. They appeared to be roughly the same age as Megan and me. Throughout the first quarter of the game, women's U.S. college basketball consists of 4 quarters instead of the 2 halves typical in men's games, Megan continued her sarcastic comments such as, "Oh look, your girlfriend just made a 3-pointer," which I chose to ignore. What was harder to overlook were the biting remarks the man seated 1 row above me was directing at the woman beside me. His comments were even more cutting than Megan's, and the woman seemed to be trying to ignore him. By the end of the first quarter, the home team was ahead 16-14. Without a word, Megan stood up and headed toward the concession stands. A guy sitting a seat away followed her shortly after, which required the woman sitting next to both him and me to stand so he could pass. That's when I first noticed that she was cute. After we sat back down, our eyes met briefly. Since misery loves company, I said, "Looks like your date is in as bad a mood as my wife." She laughed and replied, "If he were just my date, I would have already left, but he's my husband, at least for now." Instead of dwelling on our shared unhappiness, we started talking basketball. She told me she'd played guard for a Division III college team. I couldn't score to save my life, but I led the conference in assists. "How about you? Did you play?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "My wife and I both played at the same college. I was undersized for a power forward, but made up for it with hustle. I wasn't much of a scorer either, but I played tough defense and led the team in rebounds my senior year." "What do you do now?" she asked. "I'm a rookie lawyer," I answered. "So now, instead of throwing elbows, I file legal briefs. What about you?" "I'm the assistant director of admissions at the main campus of our home team's university," she said. "I actually worked with the coach to get Kate Simmons, the girl who led all scorers in the first quarter, admitted," she added proudly. At that point, Megan came back with a beer for herself, none for me. Shortly after, the woman's husband returned. At least he had 2 beers, one for his wife, and our conversation ended. At halftime, Megan left again without saying a word to me. She might have gone to the restroom, gotten popcorn, or maybe more beer, I wasn't sure. The husband of the woman next to me also stood up to leave. She stepped aside and I rose to let him pass. He gave me a quick, "Thanks," but didn't say anything to his wife. The woman and I picked up our conversation from the end of the first quarter. "It seems like your husband's mood hasn't improved much in the second quarter," I said with a chuckle, though it wasn't really funny. "Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. It seems like jealousy is the issue. And that makes me wonder. Don't a lot of psychologists say that when someone shows an irrational behavior, they believe others are like them, and it's a sign of guilt?" "I think you're right. I've especially noticed it with honesty. Dishonest people are always suspicious of everyone else's integrity because they assume everyone's just as dishonest as they are," I replied, making deep eye contact with her for the first time. We kept talking for a few more minutes, probably smiling at each other. That's likely why the kiss cam zoomed in on us. When the woman exclaimed, "Oh crap," and pointed to the huge video screen above the court, I saw the 2 of us on it just as clearly as I could see her sitting next to me, framed by a projected heart. We both had surprised, shy expressions. The remaining crowd, those who weren't off getting beer or snacks, began chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." We exchanged glances. "Shall we?" I asked, grinning widely. "Why not? My husband doesn't seem to be in the mood," she laughed. I only meant to give her a quick peck on the lips, but the moment our lips touched, they were so sweet, it brought to mind a line from an old song, "The honey drips from your sweet lips." At the time, I thought it was from an Elvis song, but later found out through a quick Google search that it's from Charlie Gracie's Butterfly. The kiss ended up lasting longer than I had intended. Apparently, I put more feeling into it than expected because the crowd started cheering louder. We finally pulled apart, and when we glanced back at the screen, it was flashing red hot, with fireworks and rocket symbols, like a mini fireworks show. Thankfully, after about 10 seconds, the screen switched to show the first half's stats. The woman and I sat in silence for a solid minute. I could tell I was embarrassed, and she probably felt the same. When I finally looked over at her, her face was flushed. I figured mine was too. I stammered, since we were apparently the best halftime entertainment, I should at least know your name." "I'm Aaron," I said, holding out my hand. She shook it and mumbled, "I'm Julie. Sorry, I got a bit carried away. I didn't mean to." "No worries," I responded. "I think I did too." We both just stared ahead, not saying anything more. A few minutes later, Megan returned and asked, "What was all that cheering about earlier?" It gave me a bit of hope that she hadn't seen it. My honest answer was, two hesitant people were caught on the kiss cam, and their kiss ended up being a little steamier than expected. The crowd seemed to enjoy the shift from shy to bold. After I said that, I glanced at Julie, and she had this mischievous grin on her face. The rest of the game went by without much happening, except for the fact that both Megan and Julie's husband left their seats again between the third and fourth quarters, but they didn't return with any snacks. I thought, maybe they just have small bladders, although I had never noticed that with Megan before. While they were gone, Julie and I had a harmless conversation. Luckily, the kiss cam didn't make another appearance. Megan and I managed to get through the second half without any conflicts, and the same could be said for Julie and her husband. The home team dominated in the second half, so no one in the crowd was on edge. Megan and her husband left with about 6 minutes remaining on the game clock. As they got up and excused themselves, Megan and I stood to let them pass. As Julie walked by me, she discreetly slipped something into my hand. I quietly pocketed it. It was a piece of paper. Megan and I left the arena with 3 minutes still on the clock. On the way home, I tried to keep a positive attitude, mostly discussing the small details of the game. As soon as we got home, I cooked dinner and opened a bottle of Megan's favorite wine, which I usually don't do. My intentions weren't entirely innocent. I thought it would be helpful if she had a few drinks considering our last fight. After some effort and a little luck, the combination of a good meal, 2 bottles of wine that she drank with my minimal help, and a foot massage that I gave her seemed to work. By 11 p.m. we went to bed, together in the master bedroom. It was incredibly satisfying, until for a moment I imagined that I had just been with Julie. Fortunately, this fleeting thought passed quickly, and after that I lay down next to Megan and held her tightly to me until we both fell asleep. On Sunday morning, I took out the pants I wore to the basketball game from the closet and checked the front right pocket. Inside was a small piece of paper with nothing on it but Julia, telephone number. Presumably her mobile phone number, unless she had some sinister intentions. The memory of the previous evening flashed through my mind, and I felt a sudden involuntary shudder. I memorized the number before I swallowed the piece of paper.
First-person account, Julie Waters. At the beginning of my story, I was 28, and my husband, Derek, was 29. We had been married for just over 4 years, but not quite 5. From almost the moment we met, I was sure Derek was the love of my life. For most of the time I knew him, Derek was a level-headed guy, passionate when the moment called for it, but generally calm and steady. That changed a few months ago. Suddenly, things I'd always done, which had never been a problem in our relationship, started to make him turn into a jealous jerk. One incident of jealousy left me both confused and angry. We were at an informal outdoor gathering, and I was just chatting with a guy we both knew, Jeremy. Jeremy laughed at something I said and lightly touched my arm. Out of nowhere, Derek stormed over and shoved him. He didn't even have the excuse of being drunk. Not that being drunk would ever justify that behavior, but he couldn't even try to use that as a pathetic excuse. I was so shocked that I didn't fully catch what Derek or Jeremy said. I stepped between them and made it crystal clear to Derek that he needed to calm down. He walked off, fuming. I apologized to Jeremy, and he seemed to accept it, though he left the party not long after. Derek wouldn't even discuss it that night, and for the next few days, things were frosty around the Waters household. I'm usually quite perceptive, but ever since Derek entered his jealous phase, I found it hard to figure him out. I was hopeful when Derek told me he'd gotten us tickets for a Saturday women's basketball game at the university where I work as the assistant admissions director. Derek knows I love basketball, as I played in high school and at a Division III college, so I was thrilled. He reassured me that the seats were great. Derek was so proud of himself that I didn't bother mentioning I could have gotten comp tickets because of my position. When we arrived, I saw that the seats he bought were actually better than the comp ones, so I was glad I hadn't said anything. We walked past a tall couple to get to our seats. Derek smiled at the woman, who was about his height, and I smiled at the guy with her, though he didn't seem to notice me. Given Derek's recent behavior, I was surprised he let me sit next to the guy. Maybe Derek was finally getting over his funk, or perhaps it was because his seat was a bit closer to the center of the court, which he found more appealing. But my hope faded when Derek made several snide remarks throughout the game. I decided to just ignore him and enjoy the game. He left during the break and brought me a beer when he came back. At halftime, I chatted with the tall guy next to me, who seemed to be having a similar relationship issue with his wife or girlfriend, much like I was with Derek. During halftime, Derek and the tall guy's wife exited the seating area, perhaps to grab some snacks or visit the restroom. Derek didn't specify. The tall guy and I exchanged friendly greetings and discovered that we both played college basketball. About 10 minutes into halftime, I glanced up at the large video screen above the court and was taken aback to see the kiss cam targeting me and the tall guy. I'm certain my face turned red as I mentioned it to him. The crowd members who hadn't left to get popcorn or use the bathroom began chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." The guy and I locked eyes. "Shall we?" he asked with a wide smile. "Why not?" "My husband doesn't seem interested," I responded playfully. I planned for just a quick peck on the lips, but when our lips met, his were so strong and masculine that all I could think of was Cher singing "It's in His Kiss" from the song Shoop Shoop, which was my mother's favorite and often played on repeat while she cooked dinner. I was pouring too much passion into the kiss and was in a nearly trance-like state until wild cheers abruptly pulled me back to reality. We ended the kiss, and when I looked up at the video screen, there was a fireworks display along with the word hot and various adjectives flashing on and off. Thankfully, after a short while, the crowd noise died down as the screen began showing game statistics. I felt utterly embarrassed and speechless, likely turning as red as a beet. The guy turned to me and nervously said, since we were apparently the best halftime entertainment, I should at least know your name. I'm Aaron," while extending his hand. I shook his hand and mumbled, "I'm Julie. Sorry I got carried away. I didn't mean to," with the phrase "it's in his kiss" still echoing in my mind. "No problem," he replied. I did too. Still feeling almost out of it, I couldn't help but smile when Aaron's wife returned a few minutes later and asked him, "What was all the cheering about a few minutes ago?" As best as I can remember, he responded, "Two reluctant people were on the kiss cam, and apparently their kiss was a bit steamier than expected, and the crowd seemed to enjoy it." I could barely contain my laughter. After the kiss cam incident, I tried to focus on the game, but I couldn't get rid of the feeling that Aaron's kiss had given me strength. During a break in the fourth quarter, I discreetly tore a page out of a small notebook that was in my purse and wrote my name and mobile phone number on it. When Derek and I were leaving, when the outcome of the game became clear, I discreetly passed a note to Aaron. I wasn't completely sure what I was thinking, because I had no intention of changing. If Derek's behavior didn't change, I'd rather get divorced than be with someone else. But nevertheless, I handed over the note. That night and the next day were better than the last few weeks, at least in the Waters family. Maybe it's because I had a great Saturday night with Derek. I enjoyed a lot of relaxation, although I felt awkward when Aaron's face flashed in my head with my eyes closed. Fortunately, that feeling disappeared as soon as I opened my eyes and focused completely on being with Derek. On Monday, when I arrived at work, one of the secretaries in my office playfully showed me a video of the kiss cam incident. I felt my face flush once more. Luckily, all the teasing I received was in good spirits, and everyone seemed satisfied with a simple explanation. For some reason, watching the video, which she promised to delete, prompted me to search for Aaron online. It only took me about 20 minutes to locate a 6'5" power forward from the Division III college he attended, and I was pleased to see that his statistics were accurately represented. I decided to make one more lighthearted internet search. How long is too long for a kiss if it's not with your partner? The general consensus appeared to be more than 10 seconds. I smiled to myself as I remembered that. Then I scolded myself for not being able to get Cher's Shoop Shoop song out of my head.
Third-person narrative. After giving it some thought and without any intention to deceive, Aaron Jacoby chose to call Julie Waters' mobile phone on the Tuesday following their Saturday basketball game. Julie picked up on the first ring. "I was wondering if you would give me a call, Aaron Jacoby," Julie responded playfully. Aaron laughed. "Oh, you noticed my last name on the caller ID." Julie replied, "I figured it out beforehand. From what you mentioned during the game, I searched you up online. There aren't many 6'5" power forwards at your school who led their team in rebounding during their senior year. I'm happy to see you didn't inflate your stats, though," she chuckled. Aaron responded with a laugh. "Now I'm at a disadvantage. I wasn't clever enough to look you up, so perhaps you could just tell me your last name." Julie laughed. "You're no fun. But since you were kind enough to call, I'll share it. It's Waters, my married name. My maiden name was Reynolds. However, you should verify my stats yourself to ensure I didn't exaggerate them." "I'll take care of that. But first, I'm curious why you shared your phone number with me." "Because I wanted you to reach out. After how you took advantage of my naive and innocent self at the basketball game, and considering the crap I've been dealing with at work from my co-workers, one even recorded my screen, I think you owe me lunch." "All right," Aaron laughed. "Even if I don't see it that way, I can't think of any reason not to have lunch with you. How about Potbelly Deli on Prescott and Vine? It's about the same distance from the campus and my office. Does that sound good?" "I was thinking of Le Taille-Vent," Julie chuckled, referring to the most expensive restaurant within 100 miles. "But Potbelly will do. What day and time?" "How about Friday at 12:30? Aaron replied. "That works for me. See you then," Julie responded in her sing-song voice before ending the call. Strange, Aaron chuckled to himself. On Friday, Aaron and Julie arrived at Potbelly simultaneously, both smiling as Aaron held the door open for her before they stepped inside. They placed their orders at the counter, with Aaron handling the payment, and then found a secluded table, setting down a 14 order sign. Aaron might not have fully seen Julie on Saturday beyond her lips, or perhaps she had significantly enhanced her appearance as she looked much more striking than he remembered. Her emerald eyes seemed almost laser-like and beautifully contrasted with her shiny brown hair, highlighted with auburn tones. Additionally, her chest was noticeably larger than he had observed during the game. On the other hand, Julie had a clear view of Aaron on Saturday, not just his lips, and he looked just as impressive that day. She admired his blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, broad shoulders, and his lovely smile accented by adorable dimples. While waiting for their order and during their meal, Julie and Aaron chatted about their lives and backgrounds in general. The conversation was enjoyable for both, and they frequently made eye contact, seemingly captivated by the depth of each other's gazes. After they finished, Julie asked, "Do you have time to visit Veterans Park for a while?" "It's just a short walk." "Sounds good," Aaron replied. "I don't need to be back at the office until 2:45. They leisurely walked to the park, amicably discussing current events without any physical contact. Upon arriving, Julie led them to a quiet bench and took a seat, with Aaron courteously following her. With a wicked smile, Julie faced Aaron and looked deep into his eyes. "I'm very straightforward, Aaron. That's why I shared my number and wanted to meet up. I have a specific purpose." "Is that so?" Aaron replied with a smile. "Absolutely," Julie responded with a grin. "As you might have noticed during Saturday's game, Derek has been really annoying me lately. He's the love of my life, and I want him back to the man I married. I don't intend to leave him right now, but things need to change. I could see at the game that you're in a similar situation." Aaron's eyes widened. "Pretty much the same situation. Megan is the love of my life, but something has to give. I can't keep living the way I have for the past few months." "That's one of the reasons I wanted to meet you," Julie continued. "Maybe if we combine our ideas, we can find a way to regain what we had with the people we hoped would be our lifelong partners. Perhaps by sharing our thoughts and ideas we can," Aaron replied with a genuine smile, looking more positive than he had in a long time. "There's another reason I wanted to meet you that I'm hesitant to discuss, but since I'm always direct, I'll go ahead," Julie said with a cunning smile. "I've been a planner my whole life, and that's what the admissions office counts on me for in my job, and I want to prepare for any eventuality." "Would one of those plans involve you leaving Derek?" Aaron asked. "I'm impressed a power forward can be so insightful," she laughed, flashing a smile that Aaron found very appealing. "Yes, exactly. Even though it might seem forward, I'll be honest. You're the only person who has interested me since I began my long-term planning about 3 months ago. So have I scared you away?" After a long pause during which they both exchanged sly smiles, Aaron replied, "Not yet. I probably haven't gotten as far as you have, and I'm not the type to move from one relationship to another, but I must admit that you are both charming. So, what is my role in your plan?" "I'm glad you weren't so persistent as to flirt with me," Julia replied, and her smile grew even wider. "I'm not going to cheat on you, if by cheating you mean intimacy. Nevertheless, your kiss, although it's a little awkward to admit, it was definitely one of the 5 best in my life. So I would like everything to be as usual, maybe a few kisses and hugs until we both see what our marriages will lead to. As we work to revive the love that our spouses and I once had, we can also evaluate each other in case things don't go the way we hope. Maybe we'll meet once a week for an hour or two, share the news, exchange ideas, and find out if we have a mutual interest if our marriages break up." Aaron stared at Julie for a few minutes, neither of them willing to break eye contact except for the occasional blink. Finally, Aaron spoke up. "You're really straightforward, Julie. I appreciate that, no beating around the bush. I'm not into cheating either, but a few hugs and kisses never hurt anyone. Megan does that at every party we attend, though what Aaron kept to himself was, but not like the intense kiss we shared for the kiss cam. Text me this weekend to arrange when and where we'll meet next week, okay?" "Sounds good," Julie laughed. "But before that, let me give you a piece of advice about Megan. Don't let things simmer. Make her sit down and listen. Tell her she's the love of your life, that you want the person back whom you married, and give her some time for that to sink in." After a long pause, Aaron responded, "Good advice. I was already thinking along those lines, but hearing you say it makes me feel like it's definitely a good idea. How about you? Is there any wisdom I can share with you from a guy's perspective?" "Just one thing. Why did Derek get so physical with a guy I was only talking to?" "I can't say for sure since I don't know him or the other guy, but I think to start getting things back on track, you should confront Derek and get him to explain why that situation upset him so much. Maybe there's something you can do to avoid it in the future." Aaron smiled. Julie thought for a moment. "Good advice," she said, with a smile in return. They got up from the bench and walked back to Julie's car, chatting casually but without any physical contact. When they reached her car, Julie said, "This is me. Thanks for lunch." "I didn't get dessert," Aaron teased, then gently pulled Julie in for a kiss. She stopped him. "Wait," she said, pulling a stopwatch out of her purse. "What's that?" Aaron laughed. "I timed the video my co-worker took of our kiss cam kiss. It was about 28 seconds long. According to the internet, a proper kiss shouldn't last more than 10 seconds. Let me know when you're ready and I'll start my timer. which is set for 10 seconds. It even has a buzzer when time's up. Julie grinned. Are you serious? Aaron began to ask, but Julie cut him off. I've already started the timer, so don't waste any more time, she said with a playful smile. Aaron immediately pulled her close, and their lips met. To him it felt just as sweet as the kiss they shared on the kiss cam, while to her it was just as strong and masculine. They reluctantly broke apart when the timer buzzed. Julie smiled and said, "Nice, really nice," as she opened her car door and slid her sleek body into the driver's seat. Aaron waved goodbye as she drove off. When Aaron returned to work at 2:40, he was surprisingly productive. He knocked out some interrogatories and requests for admissions for one of the lawsuits he was handling with a senior partner, delegated tasks to the paralegals, and left for home around 5 p.m. On his drive home, his mind drifted back to his meeting with Julie. Aaron was fully on board with her plan: do whatever they could to help their spouses move past their jealous phases, while also evaluating if they were truly compatible if things didn't work out. As Julie drove home from the college admissions office, her thoughts mirrored Aaron's. She genuinely intended to try to work things out with Derek, though she was probably a bit more pessimistic than Aaron about whether it would actually happen. When Aaron returned home that Friday night, he was relieved to see that Megan seemed to be in a slightly better mood than before. They went for an early casual dinner, but then Megan unexpectedly told him that she had promised to help a friend who was going through a difficult time. Aaron was annoyed that she hadn't mentioned it earlier, especially since it had shortened their time together. However, she promised, "I'll fix it," when she gets back. Megan returned later than Aaron had expected, but she was in a good mood. She took a quick shower and went to bed. The intimacy that followed was magnificent. After a very pleasant session, when Megan put her head on his shoulder, Aaron thought, "I really don't want to let Megan go, not only because I love her, but also because she's great in bed. We'll talk tomorrow." After breakfast on Saturday morning, Aaron said the words most husbands dread hearing from their wives: "Honey, we need to talk." "About what?" Megan replied tersely. "You're the love of my life, but over the past few months you've changed. You seem to be constantly jealous, making cutting remarks about how I react to other women. You've been distant and sometimes cold, and you're often in a bad mood. I miss the woman I married, and I need to know what I can do to get her back." Megan hesitated, trying to dodge the conversation with phrases like, "You're imagining things." But when Aaron took her hands and refused to back down, she finally began to tear up. He gave her a moment to gather herself and wipe away the tears. Then, as gently as he could, he said, "Okay, spill it." Taking a deep breath, Megan finally confessed, "At your last office party about 3 months ago, I overheard 2 paralegals and a secretary talking. They were gushing about how attractive and charming you are, and couldn't believe you were stuck with the stork, which is what they called me. They also hinted that you probably had a wandering eye and speculated about how they might get you into bed." Aaron was slightly caught off guard by this. His initial response was sincere. "There's no one at my firm who's as attractive or intimacy as you, so why would their comments even matter?" "You're just saying that," Megan replied after taking another deep breath. "No, it's true," Aaron insisted. "Who were these women?" "I only know one of their names. Carol something. One of them was about 5 feet 2 inches tall, which I wondered how she could stand up straight, and the last one had red hair and freckles," Megan said, still avoiding eye contact. "That sounds like Cynthia and Wendy," Aaron chuckled. "Wendy is a little out of her mind. The only thing Cynthia has is her figure. And Carol may not be half as attractive as you are. I can't believe anything those 3 could have said would get to you." While Aaron said this to comfort Megan, he found himself doubting her. His own interactions with Carol, Cynthia, and Wendy had been nothing like what Megan described, and none of them had ever flirted with him. He decided he'd look into it later, but for now he just wanted to keep the peace. Well, it did bother me, and after that I started watching you more closely. You really seem to light up whenever a pretty woman walks by. For heaven's sake, Megan, I'm a guy, Aaron laughed. People on diets can still look at the dessert menu without gaining weight. Just because I see things differently than you doesn't mean anything. I'm not interested in anyone but you. If you're still the woman I married, and not the one I've seen over the past few months. Aaron, not the most observant man, couldn't figure out why his words didn't seem to have the positive effect on Megan that he expected. Still, she didn't walk away, though she avoided making eye contact. Trying to fix his possible misstep, he added, I want to be mindful of your feelings. Even though it means nothing to me, I'll do my best to avoid looking at other women, except when we're in social settings where people are mingling. Sound good? Megan gave a short, okay, finally meeting his eyes. Then she asked, Are we heading to the tennis club this morning? I really need to get some practice in. I have a tournament match tomorrow against Abby Blaine. Aaron's thoughts quickly raced. Oh no, he thought. Abby Blaine was awful, but probably the most attractive woman in the state. He'd better buy some wraparound sunglasses before the match, because he was sure Megan would want him there, if only to test his self-control. Julie's Friday night didn't turn out much better than Aaron's, even though his evening, aside from the intimacy, wasn't exactly great either. When she arrived home, Derek casually announced that he was going bowling with the boys. When did this happen? Julie asked. I told you on Monday, Derek responded. Like hell you did, Julie snapped. I wouldn't forget something like that, and just last night I mentioned the idea of going out for dinner tonight and you grunted okay. I must not have been paying attention, he smirked. His smirk was a mistake. You idiot, Julie growled. You get all worked up just because I'm talking to a guy at a party, confronting him like I'm some kind of a girl of easy virtue. And now you think you can just call the shots. You act like what I say doesn't matter and then you ditch me on a Friday night. Aren't you worried I'll go out and act like a girl of easy virtue, you jerk? Derek hadn't seen Julie this furious in a long time. He knew he had to choose his next words wisely. Look, I'm sorry if there was some miscommunication, both at the party and about tonight. How about this? I'll call my friends and tell them I'll join them after I take you out for dinner. Julie started to cool down. As long as it's not Burger King or Wendy's, she replied, her arms crossed, face expressionless. How about Italy? We can get a proper Italian meal, and it won't take all night, so I'll only be a half hour late for bowling. Please, Julie, I'll even give you a foot rub later. Italy was a nice local trattoria, so Julie agreed. Derek went to the other room to call his bowling buddies, while Julie changed her clothes. They ended up having a decent conversation over dinner, talking about their day. Julie forgot to mention her lunch with Aaron, and instead entertained Derek with stories about some of the application essays for mid-year admissions. Later that night, when Derek got home, Julie was already asleep. Aaron individually spoke with Carol, Wendy, and Cynthia to verify what Megan had told him. Each of them strongly denied discussing anything related to the party Megan mentioned, and they emphasized that the three of them were never alone together at any time. They also adamantly denied ever referring to Megan as a stork, or even having such a thought. Two of them admitted to being envious of Megan's height and figure. When asked if they had tried to get Aaron to cheat with them, all three blushed slightly but truthfully responded, I've never made a move on you, and you know it. Aaron thanked them, believed their responses, and bought each of them a pair of earrings. Around the same time Aaron was questioning Carol, Wendy, and Cynthia, Julie was discreetly gathering information about Derek's bowling night with the wives of the only people she could think he might have bowled with. While she claimed to trust Derek, with some doubt, She also checked his car's odometer after dinner on Friday and before he woke up on Saturday. The details she gathered didn't fully align with Derek's bowling story, although it was still possible that he had been telling the truth. Over the next 4 weeks, Julie and Aaron met for an hour or two once a week, sometimes for lunch, other times for something else. Both were frustrated by the lack of response they were getting from their spouses, and questioned why they felt their partners were either lying or that their jealousy was a reflection of their own guilt. Nothing they suggested to each other seemed to make a difference. Each meeting ended with a brief 10-second kiss, which, surprisingly, seemed to improve over time, despite the intensity of their initial kiss-cam kiss. During their last meeting on a Monday afternoon, Julie came up with a bold idea. "I'm at my breaking point, Aaron. I think I need to do something drastic to shake Derek out of this unacceptable behavior he's had for the last 4 months. Do you feel the same?" Aaron paused, then finally admitted, "I never thought I'd say this, but yes, I do." Julie sighed and explained, "Here's the plan. You bring Megan over to my house this weekend. We can confirm the time later. We'll confront them together, tell them we haven't had an intimacy relationship, but we're frustrated with them. If things don't change, we'll tell them we'll divorce them and leave together." Aaron's eyebrows shot up. "What if they call our bluff?" "Who said it's a bluff?" Julie smirked, pulling Aaron in for a deep, unhurried kiss. When the heat from the kiss settled, Aaron muttered, "Give me a couple of days to think about it and try one last time with Megan. I might take you up on it." "Might?" Julie teased, then kissed him again, this time with a fire that made the kiss-cam moment seem tame in comparison. When they finally broke apart, Aaron breathlessly added, "More than likely." Aaron made one last attempt with Megan on Tuesday evening. Although she offered some pleasantries, she was mostly dismissive. On Wednesday, Aaron called Julie, and they arranged to confront their spouses on Saturday at 2 p.m. at Derek and Julie's house.
First-person account by Julie Waters. By noon on Saturday, the day Aaron and I planned to confront Derek and Megan about their unacceptable behavior and discuss the possibility of divorce to run off together, I was ready to leave Derek behind. I was baffled by how he had transformed from the love of my life into the jerk he had become. While I wanted to give it one last shot, I wasn't sure I really wanted it to work. Aaron seemed to embody everything Derek used to be when I first fell in love with him, and on top of that, there was that magic in his kiss, something I had never experienced before, even beyond my wildest dreams. I made it very clear to Derek that he needed to be back from his Saturday golf game by 1:30 at the latest, since we were expecting important guests. I also warned him that if he wasn't, the locks would be changed. To drive the point home, I even had him speak with the locksmith I had already paid to be on standby. Derek wasn't thrilled, but I knew he'd follow through. Aaron and Megan arrived right on time at 2 o'clock. Megan was more attractive than I had remembered, but she seemed noticeably nervous. When I called Derek into the living room to meet our guests, his face went pale, and his jaw dropped. Megan's eyes widened too. In that moment, everything clicked for me. After Aaron introduced me to Megan, I introduced her to Derek. I could sense both of them relax a little when they shook hands, politely saying, "Nice to meet you." I'm pretty sure I caught Aaron off guard when I casually began making small talk, and then dropped this bombshell announcement, although he seemed to recover quickly after I gave him a discreet wink. Aaron and I met at the basketball game we went to 6 Saturdays ago. I'm not sure if you two, Derek and Megan, remember each other from that game. Derek gave a half-hearted, "Yeah, you did seem familiar, Megan. Now I remember." Megan quickly added, "Yeah, you do look familiar." "Anyway," I continued, "Aaron and I had a nice chat at halftime and have kept in touch over the phone a few times. We both realized we enjoy bowling, and we wanted you two to meet, so we planned a bowling outing today. Aaron mentioned Megan used to bowl, and I know you, Derek, have gone bowling with friends before, so I thought this would be a great chance to meet some new people." Aaron still looked a bit puzzled, but he let me lead the conversation. Meanwhile, Derek and Megan seemed to smile with some relief. So, here's what I've done, and I hope this isn't too presumptuous of me. I've made a reservation at Southside Bowl and Billiards for a lane at 2:30. I know you're familiar with it, Derek, since you've bowled there with your buddies before. Aaron and Megan can leave straight from there for Aaron's surprise dinner reservation with Megan. And to get to know each other better, I'll ride with Aaron and give him directions. Derek, you can take Megan. If we leave now, we'll have plenty of time. I noticed Megan and Derek exchange a quick glance, followed by a subtle smile. Aaron's eyes were wide, but he didn't say a word. As soon as I got into Aaron's car, he jokingly asked, "What's up, mystery woman?" "Head to Chester Street and take a right. I'll explain everything after I make a quick call," I replied, pulling out my phone. I dialed Southside Bowl and pleaded for a lane at 2:30. After offering the owner $50, he agreed to let us cut the line and promised we'd have a lane by 2:40 at the latest. Turning to Aaron, I asked, "Which restaurant do you want me to book for you and Megan tonight?" Aaron chuckled. "Wait, are you going to tell me what's going on?" "I will, I promise, once I book the reservation." "How about Italy? Derek and I go there sometimes. They know me. And it's a nice local Italian trattoria," I suggested. "Sure," he said, still amused. I called and aimed for a 7 p.m. booking, but had to settle for 6:30. "All right, reservation at 6:30 in your name, and I'm texting you their website now," I said, sending him the info. Then I added, "Now I can explain." "Please do," he laughed. I was relieved at how well he was taking all of this, and that he hadn't freaked out. Of course, being a guy, sorry for the stereotype, he hadn't picked up on what was happening. Derek and Megan are having an affair. "What the hell?" he shouted, almost swerving off the road, earning an angry honk from the car next to us. From their reactions, it was obvious they knew each other and were terrified we brought them together to confront them. They were so relieved when I made up the bowling excuse. Tomorrow, we can meet up, share information about what they've been up to, hire a private investigator, and decide what to do next. Going ahead with our current plan would have been a mistake. Their affair gives us so much leverage when, not if, we divorce them, I said angrily, realizing I was assuming too much. "Sorry, I mean, when I divorce Derek, you'll obviously make your own choice. If we get solid proof, Megan's gone, and I want the first shot at you," Aaron growled, then smiled, placing his hand on my knee for the first time in our friendship. "You mean you want the first shot at my... You know?" I laughed. "You're so bad," he said, laughing loudly. For the rest of the drive, we planned when and where to meet the next day and brainstormed ideas for private investigators. The owner of the bowling alley helped us, and by 2:35 we were already setting up the scoring computer and lacing up our bowling shoes. Megan and Derek relaxed as soon as they realized we weren't going to expose them. Aaron was deliberately being nice to me, and I put on the most fake friendliness I've ever had in my life. I acted like I was having fun, I was laughing, and maybe the others were really like that, although I strongly doubted that Aaron was as happy as he seemed. I slept with Derek that night.
First-person account by Aaron Jacoby Megan seemed to like Italy, and she completely believed Julia's story that I surprised her with dinner there. After that, we went to a club, danced all night, and later I slept with her. If what Julia told me was true, then this could be one of my past relationships with Megan. Besides, Julia ran away from me, and I don't feel guilty thinking about her while being intimate with Megan. Before meeting Julie on Sunday at 2 p.m. in the conference room next to her office at the university, I carefully looked through my calendar for the last 4 months, and even checked the information on the internet and credit cards a couple of times. We quickly identified at least 6 occasions, including the Friday night when Derek supposedly went bowling and Megan went to help a friend in crisis, when Derek and Megan could have easily met up. It also became apparent that they worked in the same office building, with their companies just 3 floors apart. Julie's review of Derek's personal credit card revealed that he had bought all 4 tickets for the Saturday basketball game we attended. We were puzzled as to why they would join us at a basketball game together. Julie eventually suggested, and I agreed, that there were two reasons. First, to see if we had any suspicions about their affair, and second, to create another opportunity to be together. Thinking back, I realized they both left their seats after every quarter, possibly to meet up or to laugh at how oblivious we were. By 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, we were convinced they were having an affair and had already shortlisted 3 private investigators. I would meet with 2 of them on Monday, Julie with the other, and together we'd visit the one we felt most confident about. We ended our meeting with a kiss, which was probably the longest in our lives, but we agreed not to continue until the divorce papers were officially filed. Julia made it clear that she would file for divorce as soon as she received evidence from a private investigator. She has already consulted with a lawyer, a friend of her brother-in-law, known as one of the coolest lawyers in the state. I also talked to this lawyer, and she agreed to represent me as soon as the evidence is gathered, and I meet with her in person. If the results of the investigation had met our expectations, I would have filed for divorce too. I had never handled divorce cases before, did not want to be involved in them, and did not want anyone else from my law firm to interfere in my personal affairs, so I was more than happy to use the services of the same lawyer as Julie. Knowing that as soon as I have irrefutable evidence of Megan's infidelity, I will never be close to her again. Legally, it will be considered reconciliation if I do. I knew this from my bar exam, even without consulting a specialist. It was hard to restrain myself. 2 weeks and 2 days after the Saturday when Julie realized that Derek and Megan were having an affair, we met with the 2 private investigators, a man and a woman, we had hired to confirm it. We believed the evidence was indisputable, and when we presented it to our attorney, Judy Orca, not her real name, but it definitely suited her, she was practically thrilled. This led us to the next issue: how exactly we were going to handle our divorces. Fortunately, we lived in a state, and had a lawyer as sharp and well-connected as Judy, that allows the party filing for divorce to start dating once the action has been filed and served, and the judge issues a preliminary order. This order states that marital assets cannot be diminished or divided without mutual consent, and that any post-filing intimacy activity won't impact the divorce process. Following our lawyer's advice, both Julie and I moved out of our rented homes and into affordable month-to-month apartments the day the divorce petitions were filed and served. The same process server delivered the petitions to Derek and Megan on a Friday while they were having lunch together. We had hoped it would be while they were having intimacy, but their affair was too erratic for us to catch them in the act, so we settled for catching them together. Just a week after the divorce petitions for adultery were filed and served, the judge issued a preliminary order to prevent the embezzlement and misuse of the spouse's property and to dismiss any counterclaims based on post-retirement activities as grounds for divorce. Over the weekend, after we received this order, Julie and I went on a 3-day trip to a 4-star resort located about 100 miles away. By the time of our trip, it seemed to me that I knew Julia well enough. However, I soon discovered that she had a lot of surprises in store, most of them from amazing to incredible. I should have seen something coming when, after one of our 30-second kisses, before getting into my car and driving off, she looked deep into my soul, more than just into my eyes, and said, "I really hope you're at least half as good in bed as you are in kissing." Our first intimate meeting took place in the room, and it was wonderful. I'm not really sure how it happened, but when I came to my full senses, we were both lying on the floor. Fortunately, neither of us felt any noticeable pain. We kissed, eventually broke up, and then took a shower together. After taking a shower, we went to bed, and we had another session, and then we lay side by side, pressing our faces against each other. I spoke first. "It's amazing how much reality surpasses fantasy," I said with a smile. "You're absolutely right. Julie replied, smiling back. I have a feeling that by the end of this visit we will both be confident about our future, I added. I'm already sure, she replied with a mischievous smile. We kissed, and the sweetness of her lips drove me crazy, just like in the song Butterfly. It didn't surprise me at all that Derek's attempt at reconciliation, based on what Julie had said and what I had seen, was merely superficial. What did surprise me, however, was Megan's seemingly genuine effort to reconcile. If she had made that attempt before the divorce proceedings were initiated, there might have been a chance. Perhaps even before Julie and I took our trip to the resort. But after that trip, there was no way I could ever be truly happy with anyone other than Julie. Both divorces were finalized, and Julie and I got married 3 weeks after the last one went through. Third-person report. About 3 years after Julie and Aaron got married, Julie was 8 months pregnant and on maternity leave from her job, where she now worked as the admissions director at the local university. Julie and Rob were attending a women's basketball game at the university. Although Julie had to make frequent trips to the bathroom due to her increasingly compressed bladder, she made sure to be back in her seat by halftime, having arranged something special with the venue's IT team. At halftime, Julie beamed as she turned Aaron's head toward the large screen above the court in front of them. They were featured on the Kiss Cam, just like they had been 4 years earlier. This time, Aaron didn't say a word as they kissed, and he gently caressed her belly. The crowd erupted with sirens, bells, and fireworks while everyone cheered. The couple quietly, in their own hearts, felt overwhelming gratitude for the meeting their exes had unknowingly set in motion 4 years before.